Okay, that's fixed. Sorry about that. Well, this is Dr. Patrick Oben. Welcome to Glory and Grace Live Bible Study. So glad you're able to join me for part two of our series, the series we started last week titled COVID-19 Answers for Christians, for believers, for you and for me. It's a mixture of the Word of God and science, so to speak. Um, just checking again, making sure we're doing well with audio there. Okay. All right. So those of you watching live and on YouTube, let me know and make sure audio is doing well before I continue. Make sure audio is getting on all right. Okay. So, think we are good. So, couple of things going on here at our ministry. Very exciting. Very excited and looking forward to what the Lord has to do, through us to be a blessing indeed to you. First, which I highly recommend, this is February. This is February, and we have just barely 10 more months to go. If you haven't started going through the Bible yet, in other words, you do not have a plan to read through the Bible in a year, I highly recommend you get started right away. We have adopted reading through the Bible in 1 year, RTB1. You know, I highly recommend that you do this. You can find, we created a forum already for that at theshenschool.com, where you find encouragement, you find, you know, the inspiration and the support you need. You find your questions will be answered there. So I encourage you, get started. If you could sign up with the forums, get the encouragement you need. By December 31st, all of us, following our ministry, my encouragement to you is we should all be looking at reading through the Bible completely, at least once. I was so thrilled. You know, most of you communicate to me by email. I read your mails. Very encouraging. You know, yeah. One of one of our followers right there, I think from Nigeria, she plans to read the Bible not just once, more than once. I think that should be Hillary. Hillary, maybe you're watching or now you're going to watch this video recording. That was great. You don't just plan to do it once, you want to do it twice, even more than once. So awesome. So there are people like that. They are reading through the Bible even more than once. You could do it in 2 years if your schedule, doesn't allow you to finish it in 1 year. Sometimes I don't finish in a year. I carry it over to the next year. Sometimes it happens to me. But I want you to make it a point to get through the Bible this year. Not just this year. Let it be a yearly adventure for you. So that's number one. Number two, which is quite exciting equally. From next week, Bible studies, devotionals, the name will change from Glory and Grace to Deshen. You know the word Deshen, it's central in our ministry, Deshen School of the Spirit, Deshen Publishing, and a couple of, in fact, our ministry, Patrick Oben Ministries, INC, and owns the copyright, you know, the trademark, so to speak. That's what, not copyright, but trademark to the word Deshen, because it's really central for our ministry. So Bible studies will be renamed Deshen Daily or Deshen Live Bible Studies. And our daily devotionals will be renamed Glory and Grace Daily to Deshen Daily. In fact, the devotional for tomorrow is going to be about Deshen daily. What is that word, Deshen? What does it mean? So, as from next week, Thursday, we will not be talking of Glory and Grace Live. We will refer to it as Deshen Live Bible Study. And next week is going to be looking forward to, talking more about Deshen and the devotional life and why this is so important for you as a believer. Now, with those two in place, let me quickly go over a couple of things. COVID-19 questions or answers for Christians, for believers, people like you and for me. Last week was not really a Bible study, so to speak. It was just a conversation, looking at religion, looking at faith, looking at spiritual things and how they interact with medical science. If you haven't listened to that, I encourage you to do it. Just listen to it. It's going to be an encouragement to you. One of the verses I read last week, Mark 12, verse number 17. You know, these Pharisees and the Jewish leaders, they were looking for every means to trick Jesus to doing something stupid so they would capitalize on it and bring an accusation against him. He was wisdom personified. He knew everything. So they came to him and asked him, Jesus, should we pay taxes or not? And I'm telling you, if that question was asked to many of us today, we would not have given the, certainly far, we would not have given the answer Jesus gave. Hopefully by the grace of the Lord and by the working of the Spirit, we would have that wisdom to respond in that way. If that question was asked to preachers like me today, do you know what we would say? We would pull theology and try to look at all the biblical reasons why maybe Christians should pay taxes, or hopefully not, why Christians should not. I don't expect anybody to say that. But we would have drawn on theology and looked at ethics and looked at every reason. And then, as the world knows us so well, they trick us into getting into things which God doesn't want us to be in them. You find a minister derailed and is fighting battles which are not part of his ministry. The word of the Lord has been given to Jesus to preach, had been given to him to preach. Just imagine, instead of preaching the word, he started arguing about taxes. Who should pay and who should not pay? That's what they wanted him to do. To get engaged with them, taxation, and then get into trouble with the government, get into trouble with Caesar, and so on and so forth. He could see through their hypocrisy by virtue of wisdom. And this is what he said to them. Render to Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. If I listen, the next part says, they marveled at him. They were shocked at his response because they expected him to say, don't pay taxes, it's against the law, it's against God, we don't like Roman government. They were blown away. He said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Jesus makes a distinction between what is Caesar's and what is God's. Well, you could say everything that Caesar has is God's, right? Yes. But Jesus is making a practical distinction between Caesar and God. And if we fail to make that distinction, we would end up fighting battles or getting into all kinds of arguments which have no place with our faith. So why did I say that? It's because the majority of the Christian community, in some degree, which this is a pandemic, things are rough for everybody, right? The life has changed for everybody. Many of us haven't been through anything like this. And what we have done is we are trying to use Caesar to solve God's problems that he has on the earth to fix. In other words, we're trying to use faith to answer scientific questions. We are trying to bring the Christian faith and understanding and what God has said to us, and trying to bring it to answer medical science or questions from medical science. Please, faith is faith. Science is science. There is an interaction between them. But our confusion will begin when we fail to make a distinction between what has to be responded by faith and what has to be responded, what requires a faith response and answer, and what requires a medical scientific response. I'm not going to talk today a lot about the intersections between faith and science. Last week I made a very profound statement, which, if you really understood what I said, it should provoke you to either reject it or say, maybe I don't know what I'm saying. I said, science at its basics, at its fundamentals, is divine in origin. And I qualified that to tell you what I meant. That science is simply the study of the natural laws that govern the universe, using that knowledge to change our day-to-day life. Science is simply unveiling the laws God created. Who has, how did this mentality come into us? To take what is divine, creation is divine, and give science such a glory that we have said, for example, you study the laws of physics, gravitation, for example, or the electron, is it a particle or a wave? Let me ask you something. Who created the electron? Who created the nucleus with protons and neutrons and electrons around it and set aside the laws that govern the activity? Who did that? It wasn't science. Science is simply finding out knowledge of these things and using that knowledge to help us. I'm telling you, science is divine in its origin. That statement is either going to offend you if you don't understand it, or it will cause you to just reject it, that I have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you understand it, it will be profoundly impactful. The problem is not science. Science cannot reject God. It is not the science that rejects God. It is the scientist. I'm in the medical field. I understand science. I've seen how science is being manipulated for the good of the scientist. Science can be misunderstood. It's partial knowledge. It's not complete knowledge. It can be misunderstood. It's not that the science itself is wrong. It is us. Our knowledge is incomplete. So important. So, let me get back to some of the questions. One of the interesting things I'll talk about, is this vaccine efficacious? Is it effective? Is it safe for you? Should you take it? Is COVID-19 real? Let me begin with that. When the pandemic started, us, right, Christians, this is not real. This is not true. This is fake. It's all kinds of reasons were given to explain the existence of COVID-19. Please, faith is not foolishness. We are not foolish. Faith is not foolishness. This is a virus. I'm a doctor. I treat patients with COVID-19. So, this thing is not a joke. So, all those theories or whatever they are, and the problem is that we take faith and create conspiracy theories, and they hurt the Christian community. They hurt the Christian life. They hurt the perspective of the world about Christianity. God did not send us to answer scientific questions. COVID-19 is real. Is it serious? Should I describe to you what I've seen? Of course, time is not going to allow me. This is not the flu. This is not the flu. This is where the difficulty comes in. This is a pandemic. We don't know a lot about this virus. We don't. Research is coming up every day. We are learning a lot in the medical community. There are some people who have it, they have all the medical comorbidities, and they are fine. They just feel tired, a little bit of fever, and that's it. This another person has the same medical problems, and they're intubated, they're in the ICU. Some of them die. And then the person who had just the little fever will say, no, COVID-19 is not serious at all. I know somebody who had it and did not have any problems. That's not the way science works. You don't take the case of your grandma at home and generalize it. That's not the way we function as doctors. It is not because one person took hydroxychloroquine in some clinic in some remote area and then felt better. That means hydroxychloroquine is a treatment for COVID-19 for all patients. That is not the way science works. And you don't bring common sense to answer scientific questions. You bring science, the scientific procedure. You don't bring faith. You don't bring what you think. Somebody says, oh, no. I've met a lot of people. I've been exposed to COVID. I didn't get it. This thing is not true. Wrong thinking. That is not the way science works. And the reason we get into all of these sort of questions is because, number one, we are still learning about this virus. Some people get sick, others don't. Others who are living in the same house. I've had patients, the wife is positive, the husband is not. They live in the same house. I've had others, the wife is in the ICU, intubated, struggling for her life. And the man had just mild symptoms. Do we have an explanation yet for everything? We don't. We're still learning about this virus. But the error you should not make is to carry a conspiracy theory because your granddad, your grandfather had it and did not feel sick. You generalize it that why are people dying? Because this person had it and was fine. That's not the way science works. So don't make that mistake. Please, don't make that mistake. Let me jump very quickly into this theory of Christian theory now. That COVID-19 has to do with the Antichrist, the vaccine has to do with the mark of the beast, and so on and so forth. We've been there, right, as Christians. We started there and then realized, oh, that's probably not true. Because my time is wrapping up very quickly, let me say this very quickly. COVID-19 vaccine is not the mark of the beast. Don't use that as a reason not to take the vaccine. I've told you, don't use faith to answer scientific questions. There is an intersection. There is a point where the scripture explains certain things to us that can help us in science. But that's not the purpose of the scripture. God did not give us the scriptures to create science. I'm telling you, you don't go to a Bible school to go and learn physics. Or if you want to study, there is a lot of astronomy in the scripture, but you don't go and be reading the Bible to understand astronomy. That's not God's purpose for the Bible. God didn't give us the Bible to have a secret answer to the medical community about COVID-19 vaccine. No. Our faith is not foolishness. You are a wise person as a Christian. The Spirit of the Lord, who is the Spirit of wisdom, is in you. So COVID-19 vaccine is not the mark of the beast. Now let me say this. You remember when this started? I wrote an article. I said, this is not the Antichrist. It has nothing to do with the Antichrist coming to seize the world or put the world in a lockdown. However, COVID-19 and what has happened has told us in very explicit words that the world is ready for the Antichrist. When the Antichrist will come, will the mark of the beast be a vaccine or a physical mark or a chip in your hands? I tell you, no. It is not a physical mark. However, listen. Oh, how do I explain this? I did a video on this, right? I want you to refer back to it. The mark of the beast is not a physical mark. It is not. Let me use this example. Do you know that you have the mark of Christ on you? You do. You have a mark, a seal of Christ on you. What is that mark? Is it something on your head? No. The mark of the beast and the number, the Antichrist, it is a matter of devotion and commitment and belief and trust and loyalty to this man. You cannot get that mark accidentally. How many of you got saved accidentally? You got a mark of Christ on you. You got it one day and your father took a stamp of Christianity and bam on your head. And you got, I'm a Christian. I didn't want to be. Is that what happened to you? No. You understood the message of Christ. You decided to believe in him. And you have decided to commit your life to him. You have decided to entrust your life to him. That is what brings you under the loyalty of Christ. The mark of the beast. The people who have that mark, it begins from that devotion. These are people who will know the Antichrist. He is against God. They will know what he stands for. And voluntarily, they would accept him, what he's doing. It will not be an error. It will not be a mistake on their part. It will not be as if they didn't know and then out of a sudden, somebody just bam, the stamp on them. Or maybe you go and you get a vaccine shot and by the time you know it, you have had the mark of the beast. Oh my God, I've had the mark of the beast. What should I do? It will not be like that. You will know. They will be deceived, but they will know the man. They will know what he stands for. It will be a voluntary act. I choose to do this. However, let me add that. Will there be a physical component to this? I want you to see how the system is going to work. This man will come, and this is what he's going to do. Anybody who is not loyal to him will not be able to go to a supermarket. Now, the question is this. How would you know who is loyal to him? Would there be some way to find that out? if you look at today's world, you discover that yes, there are multiple ways you can do that now. For example, could it involve a chip in your hands? Yes. What about a badge? It could be anybody who is a follower of the Antichrist. You need to show your badge. I know that there are people who have believed in him, but to enter the supermarket, I just need a proof that you are one of us. Is it a badge? Or maybe there is a chip in your hands. You just go. You know how we swipe in? You just go and you scan, you swipe, you enter. So there will certainly be a physical component. It might be, who knows, they might put a chip on people's foreheads. But that chip, that physical component, it's not as if they are going to catch you. You say, no, I don't believe in the Antichrist. I believe in Jesus. This is the Antichrist, I don't want you. They say, nope, we're going to put that chip in your head by force. Even if you don't want, they put it in your head. That's not the way it's going to work. It's going to be you accept him. You accept him. And they put it there. If you don't, you get killed. So please, this is not the mark of the beast. It is not. Now, the issue is this. The next question is, this one is, I should be getting ready to round up. The COVID-19 vaccine, let me round up with this. Should I take it as a Christian? And just lately, we also had questions about, what about the African American community? Should they get this vaccine as black? Should black people get this vaccine? Should minorities get this vaccine? Today my focus is on the Christian community. So should Christians get the vaccine? And I'll refer back to last week's teaching. That question, the answer to that question does not come from your pastor. The answer to that question, should I get the COVID-19 vaccine as a Christian? It will not come directly from reading the scriptures. Like what I mean, the scripture will give you wisdom, but that's not what I mean. But you're not going to find a verse that says Christians should take vaccine or not. It will not come from your church. Your church can encourage you. Your pastor can or not. It will not come from you going to read a devotional somewhere. It is a scientific question that needs to be answered scientifically. In other words, you as a person, as an individual, you have to judge the science of it. How many of you go to your doctors and you have pneumonia? The doctor prescribes antibiotic and you go and ask your pastor, Pastor, should I take antibiotics? How many of you do that? How many of you have a heart attack, right? You are in front of the doctors. They told you, well, you have a heart attack, and these medications are going to help you. Take aspirin, take a statin, and then you called up your pastor. Say, Pastor, should Christians take aspirin when they have a heart attack? How stupid, right? We don't do that. It is the same principle with this vaccine. It's the same principle. So the question has to be answered based on the science, just in the same way. Science has told us that aspirin is beneficial for those who have heart attacks. Science has shown us, and we have results that we know of, that penicillin is effective as an antibiotic. Science has shown us that if your cholesterol is high and you take a cholesterol lowering medication, it's going to come down and you have a benefit. You did not fast and pray. You used the data. That is the way you should respond to this vaccine. Use the COVID-19 efficacy, safety, scientific data. In other words, look at the science. Are there flaws in it? Can we trust it? What options do you have in a pandemic? Right? What options do you have? Should Christians get the vaccine? As a doctor, what do I say? Yes. In fact, there is no reason why we should isolate ourselves and put Christians. Because when you say, should Christians get the vaccine, what you are saying is that that vaccine has something to do with your faith. A Christian is part of the community, like everyone else. So the question is, do we have data we can absolutely trust about this vaccine? Science is the greatest evidence of science comes from what we call clinical trials. These vaccines have been tested. Granted, let me say this, being a doctor, knowing what science is, this is the best level of evidence we have. However, you cannot say this is the absolute truth. When Pfizer tested their vaccine with a trial, it's just one trial. Usually, what typically happens is another set of investigators, independent of these trial investigators, will probably do that testing and see if what they are saying is true. 95% efficacy. Okay, that's what you say. Let's see if we'll replicate that. We don't have that kind. We don't have the privilege yet. This is an emergency. This is a pandemic. That's what we've got. Is it the ideal scenario? No. I'll get it. I'll get that. That's true. It's not the ideal scenario. But that's the best we have so far. As time goes on, there's going to be more proofs. And trust me, people are going to study what Pfizer is saying to test what they are saying about their vaccine is true. Yep, we're going to have that data and they'll modify it. So your decision today should be based on that science. Should we trust it? I'll tell you yes. 100% trust? Probably not. Because there is room for mistake. This is science. It's not a perfect knowledge. So in terms of efficacy, this vaccine is extremely effective. 95% on average. That's very, very effective. In fact, the efficacy of this vaccine can be compared to the efficacy of vaccines like the measles vaccine. That vaccine alone, just the vaccine or vaccinations alone, have almost completely eradicated diseases like that. Isn't that a wonderful thing? This is how effective this vaccine proves to be based on the science we have. Oh, I got the vaccine and somebody had the vaccine and tested positive again and had the COVID. Okay. Let me just remind you of what I said. Science doesn't work like that. It is not because your grandma had the vaccine and tested positive again that you're going to say this vaccine doesn't work. Your grandma is one of billions of people. These clinical trials that take thousands of people to see what is the average. Don't make judgments based on what your cousin in Idaho said about the vaccine. That's not the way science works. So, efficacy, is it effective? Yes, based on the data we have. Is it safe? Very safe. The data we have, it shows that it's very safe. Listen, let me put it this way. This is medicine. There is no pill you put in your mouth that is safe completely. Some of you're taking Tylenol. You have a body ache and you just take Tylenol and you drink. You don't know. Go open the leaflet of Tylenol. Look at the side effects. I've had patients that, I prescribe medications, they read the side effects and they are so scared they don't want to take the medication. Is that the way you're going to do? No. all medication, there is a risk to every medication. And in medicine, what we do is to balance the risk and the benefits. If you have a body ache, what is the chance of you having liver failure from Tylenol when you take that medication to relieve your pain? It's pretty small. Or somebody's going to say, I know my friend's mother-in-law's brother who lives in California took Tylenol and was admitted to the hospital, and it was bad. I've told you that is not the way science works. What is the chance if you give 100 people Tylenol? What is the chance that one of them would develop liver failure? That is the way we look at scientific data. Will somebody develop a liver failure? Maybe, yes, somebody is going to have a bad reaction. But how many of them had a bad reaction? 10 out of the 100? That's 10%. That's a big problem. Is it 50 out of 100? Or is it just one person out of 100? It matters. That is the way you should judge the safety of this vaccine. That number one, every vaccine you take has a side effect. Every one of them. Every medication you take has a potential for a side effect. This vaccine has local, that's a shot. That's a shot you're taking. It's going to hurt. Some of you might have body aches, fevers. Some will have it mildly, some will have it severely. For God's sake, that is a medication you're taking into your system that is causing your immune response to respond. You would have some side effects. The question is, are they mild? Are they serious? Should I take them? Should I take the vaccine? Should I be concerned? Most of them, they are mild. Once in a while, you'll find some people will have severe reactions. Now we are learning about a generalized body kind of inflammatory response that we see in children when they take the vaccine, or younger adults. So yes, there are side effects. Now the big one is this anaphylaxis, meaning severe allergy. Oh, it's a big deal. One person in some city in Florida, or somebody in North Dakota, for example, had the vaccine and had allergy. Oh, this vaccine is terrible. Somebody had allergy. It's my neighbor. He had an allergic response. Where is he? He's in the hospital. I will never take this vaccine. Oh no, that's not the way it works. Your neighbor is one of 1 million people who have taken that vaccine and had that reaction. That's the way you should think. But as humans, it's so hard to be removed from our personal experiences. Even as a doctor, right? I have biases. I've prescribed a medication to somebody who had a bad reaction to that medication. And each time I have to prescribe that medication, just because of my experience, I hesitate. Another doctor might not. That's why you find differences in doctors, because of our prior experiences. So as humans, there is no way to eradicate that. You just have to make sure it doesn't affect you a lot. So this vaccine is safe. Now, for anaphylaxis, for example, when someone takes penicillin, the risk of having anaphylaxis is 1 of 5,000. That is, if 5,000 people get it, one of them will probably develop severe reaction. But how many of us are concerned about that? No. Do you know the risk of getting anaphylaxis from this vaccine? It is 1 in about 100,000. 1. That is, if 100,000 people get the shot, 1 person will develop anaphylaxis. Compare it to penicillin that we take, we just pop every day. If 5,000 people take it, 1 person will develop it. That's the way you compare things. So it's safe. Now, what about the technology? Does it change my genes? Should I be concerned about it? This is a tricky question. Tricky question. Number one, the way this vaccine was produced, we don't have any vaccines like this. That's true. We don't have any vaccines like this. It's based on some something very unique we call messenger RNA. Now, it's just simply a message that is given to the cell to produce antibodies in a different manner. The technology itself is not new. They have been working on these things for many years, many years. So it's not new. It's not new technology. It's just that there is no approved vaccine in the US, for example, that uses that technology. So that technology is new. You can't say, you should not be concerned about it. No, that's not reasonable. We are humans. Right? We are humans. Yes, so it's new. They've been working on for the past couple of years. So this is new. Yep, we need to be honest. This is something new. We don't know a lot about it. This is a pandemic. You probably don't have a lot of options on the table. Does it change my DNA? It doesn't. Now, very, very quickly, I know my time is, oh dear Lord, my time is fast spent. I should be rounding up. Very quickly, this is the way the body works. You have the nucleus, which is the center of the cell. The nucleus produces messenger RNAs. These are messages. It's just like you send a text message. You send a text message to a company to produce something for you. The nucleus sends a text message. That text message is called messenger RNA. So it leaves the nucleus and it goes into the cell and tells the cell, produce this protein, produce this protein. Now, this is the way the body works normally. Now, this vaccine, what it does is it produces messenger RNA, which usually comes from the nucleus. So the messenger RNA is put into the cell. It doesn't enter the nucleus because the nucleus is where it normally comes from. So since you already have the messenger RNA, it doesn't get into the nucleus. It just goes to the cell, tell the cell, this is a text message, do this and do that. So it doesn't enter the nucleus. It doesn't change your DNA. It doesn't change. Could there be some potential ethical issues associated with this? And could it be abused someday in the future? Who can say that can never happen? We are living in the world, a broken world. I've told you, the problem is not science. It is a scientist. The problem is not that messenger RNA. It's what somebody with an evil heart could do with that technology. So yeah, those are valid concerns. But based on the data we have, should you get it? Yes. If you have major concerns about it, what should you do? Talk to your doctor. If you judge the science and you're not so sure about it, you hesitate, you want to wait and see, or you don't want to get it now, you weigh the risk of getting this COVID and the risk of you getting it and the side effects from the vaccine, and you think that, well, I don't really think it's for me, that's a choice. But it's based on science. Don't put God in it. Don't say God told you not to take that vaccine. You are causing trouble for yourself and for many believers who will hear you. Don't say it is the mark of the beast, because young believers will hear that and it's going to be a problem. So, oh dear. I know I've gone up way beyond my time. This Saturday at 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. Central Time, we'll get into observation part 1, hopefully, of the inductive live Bible study. I'm so glad to see your engagement, those of you who are on. If you're not yet signed up, theshenschool.com, you can go there, and it's a Zoom class. The opportunity for live interaction, get your questions, answer your questions, that's the best part of it. You can always check out the video and the course material later. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. In the meantime, next week, we're looking forward to having Deshen Live Bible Study, talking about the importance of the devotional life in your spiritual life. Until then, you stay blessed, so excited, so thankful you were able to join us. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.